What if I told you that a 13-year-old kid from Florida would grow up to educate millions of people about environmental conservation? Meet Charles Orgbon III, a young man who transformed his childhood concern for the planet into one of the most impactful environmental education organizations of the 21st century. In the early 2000s, while most teenagers were focused on video games and social media, Charles was watching documentaries about climate change and feeling overwhelmed by the scale of environmental problems. Born in 1992, he grew up during a time when environmental awareness was beginning to reach mainstream consciousness, but youth voices were largely absent from the conversation. The turning point came in 2005 when Charles was just 13 years old. After watching Al Gore's documentary, An Inconvenient Truth, he felt compelled to take action. Unlike many adults who felt paralyzed by the enormity of environmental challenges, Charles saw opportunity. He believed that education was the key to creating lasting change, and he was determined to make environmental knowledge accessible to everyone, especially young people. That same year, Charles founded Greening Forward, an organization dedicated to environmental education and youth empowerment. What started as a simple idea in his bedroom would eventually reach over 10 million people worldwide. His vision was straightforward, yet revolutionary. If young people understood environmental issues and felt empowered to act, they could become the driving force behind positive change. Greening Forward's approach was different from traditional environmental organizations. Instead of focusing solely on policy changes or large-scale initiatives, Charles emphasized grassroots education and individual action. The organization developed programs that made complex environmental concepts understandable and actionable for people of all ages, but particularly for students and young adults. One of the organization's most successful initiatives was the creation of educational content that simplified environmental science without dumbing it down. Charles understood that people needed to grasp the science behind environmental issues to make informed decisions. Greening Forward produced videos, articles, and interactive materials that explained everything from carbon cycles to renewable energy in engaging, accessible ways. The organization also pioneered the use of social media for environmental education long before it became commonplace. Charles recognized that young people were increasingly getting their information online, so he met them where they were. Through platforms like YouTube, Facebook, and later Instagram and TikTok, Greening Forward shared bite-sized environmental facts, tips for sustainable living, and stories of young environmental leaders. By 2010, Greening Forward had expanded beyond digital education to include hands-on programs. The organization began partnering with schools to implement environmental education curricula and organize eco-friendly events. Students learned about composting, energy conservation, and sustainable transportation through interactive workshops and real-world projects. Charles's work caught the attention of major environmental organizations and media outlets. He was invited to speak at conferences, appeared on television programs, and was featured in magazines as an example of youth leadership in environmental activism. Despite the recognition, he remained focused on the core mission: making environmental education accessible and empowering young people to take action. One of the most significant aspects of Charles's approach was his emphasis on hope and solutions rather than doom and gloom. While many environmental messages focused on catastrophic predictions, Greening Forward highlighted positive developments, innovative technologies, and success stories. Charles believed that people were more likely to engage with environmental issues if they felt hopeful about the possibility of change. The organization's impact extended far beyond its immediate reach. Many young people who engaged with Greening Forward's content went on to start their own environmental initiatives or pursue careers in sustainability. Charles had created a ripple effect, inspiring a generation of environmental advocates who would carry the message forward. In 2012, Charles expanded Greening Forward's mission to include environmental justice issues. He recognized that environmental problems disproportionately affected marginalized communities and that any comprehensive approach to environmental education needed to address these inequities. The organization began highlighting stories of environmental racism and promoting solutions that prioritized community empowerment. As Greening Forward grew, Charles faced the challenge of maintaining the organization's grassroots feel while scaling its impact. He worked to ensure that the organization remained true to its founding principles of accessibility, youth empowerment, and solution-focused messaging. This required careful balance as the organization attracted more funding and institutional support. The rise of climate activism among young people in the 2010s validated Charles's early belief in youth leadership. As figures like Greta Thunberg gained international recognition, it became clear that young people were indeed capable of driving environmental change. Charles's work with Greening Forward had helped lay the groundwork for this movement by proving that age was not a barrier to environmental leadership. Charles often said, "Environmental education isn't just about teaching facts and figures. It's about empowering people to see themselves as part of the solution." This philosophy guided every aspect of Greening Forward's work and distinguished it from more traditional educational approaches. The organization's success wasn't without challenges. As environmental issues became increasingly politicized, Charles had to navigate competing perspectives while maintaining Greening Forward's focus on education rather than advocacy. He worked to present scientific information objectively while still inspiring action, a delicate balance that required constant attention. By 2015, Greening Forward had reached millions of people through its various programs and platforms. The organization had become a trusted source of environmental information for educators, students, and community leaders. Charles's vision of making environmental education accessible had been realized on a scale he could hardly have imagined as a 13-year-old watching documentaries in his bedroom. The impact of Charles's work extends beyond the numbers. Teachers report that students who engage with Greening Forward's materials show increased environmental awareness and are more likely to adopt sustainable behaviors. Parents notice their children becoming more conscious of energy use and waste reduction at home. Communities that have hosted Greening Forward programs report increased participation in environmental initiatives. Today, as environmental concerns continue to grow more urgent, Charles Orgbon III's work remains more relevant than ever. His approach of combining education with empowerment has proven to be a powerful formula for creating lasting change. Greening Forward continues to evolve, adapting to new technologies and emerging environmental challenges while staying true to its core mission. The story of Charles Orgbon III and Greening Forward demonstrates that age, resources, or formal credentials are not prerequisites for making a significant impact. Sometimes the most powerful changes begin with a single person who sees a problem and decides to act. In Charles's case, that decision to act has educated millions of people and inspired countless others to become environmental stewards. As we face unprecedented environmental challenges, the work that Charles began as a teenager becomes increasingly vital. His belief in the power of education and youth leadership offers a roadmap for addressing complex global problems through grassroots action and community engagement. The millions of people who have been touched by Greening Forward's message carry forward the potential for positive environmental change, proving that one person's vision can indeed reshape our world.